Hello everyone, how are you? Okay, today I'm continuing to work on my little tote bag for the prompt of a bag for the Roxy Journal of Stitchery. So I have my lining ready to go. My pattern is based on a small tote bag video I found from Chicnscratch. And just to recap, my panels that I'm using to make my bag are 11 inches by 8 inches. So I just thought I'd quickly mention that. There are some straps that'll come into play shortly, and they are 9 inches by 3 inches. And then there's a little bit of wadding that Claire uses on the, Angie uses on the inside of her straps, just to give it a bit of rigidity. And they're 9 inches by 1 inch. But we'll get to that. Go and watch Angie's video, and it is just the best little bag to get the corners square. She just has the easiest way. She starts with a 1.5 inch square, and once the seams are done, she pops that in there and cuts it out. So I've kept that, and I've also kept the piece that I cut out. So you can see the seam sitting there, and that would have been like that on the lining. And then once that happens, you're able to bring those edges together and just sew across. So super, super clever. Just pop that in there, pop it out of the way. And I'm, of course, using some beautiful French fabric that I picked up on my trip to Paris, my shopping trip. So it's lovely to be able to use these, you know, elements in something that I can use every day. It's excellent. So where am I at? Now, in the last video, I placed down all of these scraps of fabric. I then went around and invisible stitched the whole lot right through, so nothing's moving. And then I went back with some crochet cotton, just a pearl crochet cotton, and went around the outside of everything. I kept it really simple. I tossed around seed stitch and lots of running stitch and all sorts, but at the moment, that's my base. Then I grabbed a pen late last night, a heat soluble friction pen, and just roughly sketched in a bit of a branch for him to sit on. So I also added 3 leaves. Not sure about the position of this one yet. That might change. I might bring it more out to here. But at the moment, there's one there, and one there. Not sure what I'm going to do with the leaves yet, whether I embroider them or I bring in some fabric. Not sure. As for my little flowers, I haven't done too much more. The only thing I did do is make another tatting cluster like I did on the last video. And also I stitched on a little piece of fabric to the bottom of it to sort of stabilize it. And then I was able to gather it in. Didn't quite make a circle, but that's okay, because then something else can come over the top of it and you'd never know. So I'm not too worried about that. I also nibbled out of that piece of lace I showed you a flower, and at the end of the lace, one was cut. So it was like cut through there. So I thought, well, I could do the same thing. I'll just take the flower and we'll tuck that under somewhere and it'll look like it was a full flower. What else did I do? And I made another little Rachel flower, slightly smaller than the one that I did on camera, which was cutting the 2 peanut shapes out of the fabric, 2 of them, and then pinching them together and putting a few stitches in. So I'm still working on flowers, and I thought I'll just keep them in my applique pin tin. Now, what I wanted to show you is the start of couching on my twine to make my tree. I just find it is the best way to make a realistic branch is using some twine. And I've got this sort of an off-green, olive green coloured thread, which blends nicely. I'm going to use a fine-ish needle. There's a few layers here of fabric now. So to have a needle that's nice and fine and that can slither through easily is a good thing. Let me just thread up. So what we'll do, I think, in this video is get my tree into position. I might start and stop it a little bit because otherwise we are going to be here forever, and the month of April is marching on and is nearly done. So if this rolls into another video, for goodness sakes, I would probably need to find something that's pre-recorded and push that into May to squeeze in another April video, but we'll see. We'll see how quickly this goes. Now, as for technique, when I picked up my yarn, I noticed it was quite chunky down this one end, and yet the next one was quite fine. So the third piece, because it was 3 of them, was chunky as well, like this. So I've used that first, and there's even a little bit of stick in it. It's quite a rustic twine, which is great because that really gives the feeling of bark. This is a little bit thinner, so I didn't use that because if I do use that, I'd want to be at the top of my bush. And then as it untwined, this thick bit became quite thin. So I kept it as tight as I could, and I've been using that as my, you know, thinner part of the branch. Now I got up here. Well, there's my needle right there waiting for me, my bent little needle. So I was using the little applique pins to hold the twine where I want it. You don't have to, but if you want to plan out, say, quite a distance of twig, the little pins are great for that because you can get them where you want them. And I'm roughly following my sketch. You don't have to stick to the sketch line, but I think it's pretty close to where I would want it. So I'm now just couching it down. So good old couching. You've got something you want stitched into position and you use a stitch that jumps backwards and forwards over. What is that? Just a bit of this twine sticking out. Where are my little scissors? I've got my big monsters here, and that's a bit of overkill. So I thought I'll just turn on the camera, show you that I'd finished the back stitching of all of those pieces of little morsels, and I'm now, I did a little bit of invisible stitch around the bird too. There was a bit of a bubble there because there was no layers of fabric sort of holding it down. So I went through, could do with another couple stitches in there. I sort of ducked through the actual patchwork a little. So if you do have a bubble, just put some invisible stitch through that zone, especially if you've got a large piece or a feature piece. So I've now stitched right to the end of that twig. That's roughly where my leaf potentially will kick off. So this little piece I think is perfect to bring in here. So I'm going to, probably don't need to pin it. Now, for some reason, my iPad is not talking to my TV up on the wall, so I'm trying my darndest to stay in shot. Of all days that the internet's letting me down, there's a day where we're doing some close-up stitching. But I think I've got it cornered anyway. So this little guy just needs some little anchoring stitches. Yes, you will see potentially where you've joined in your thread or your next piece of twine, but don't stress about it because branches, twigs joining other twigs, there can be little knobbly bits along the way, so don't stress that it's not looking you know, absolutely perfect. Don't be afraid to twist your twine as well. I love this technique. I do a lot of this type of collaging using, you know, strings and twine and things. It's just the best way to get a branch. I'm making sure my stitches are nice and tight too. I think I'm there already. And considering this is the tiniest little scrap that I had in my traveling kit of supplies while I'm in the whole process of moving house, it's sort of what I've got's what I've got. Occasionally, if there's something in particular I want, I have to get hubby to go rummaging wherever it may be to try and get it for me. He's the one doing a lot of commuting at the moment between properties. I'm babysitting puppy dogs, so wherever they are is my base. Okay, it's got this tiny bit left. I might pop that bit there. Try not to handle it too much because it will start to disintegrate on you. So I'm going to quickly stitch this into position. I thought if I run out of twine, whatever the leaves are going to be, which are, I'm thinking seriously will be something embroidered, probably a pearl cotton. Oh, come on, get a better needle. Don't have the patience today to be threading a bead needle. Yeah, whatever the, what was I saying? Well, whatever twine I have to do the job will have to do, because I just want to get this bag finished. And there's plenty here, like I probably could have been a bit sneaky and used a little less under the bird because there'll be flowers, but I thought, oh, it'll be right. We'll just carry on. I'm just going to give that little twist. I'll do a little bit more of this type of work. Then I might pause the video and finish the rest of the tree off. Now I was looking, as I walked into the room to film, I was looking at that French piece of fabric because I need to decide what colour to make the rest of the twigs, well, the leaves probably, and maybe a few twigs. And I, in my head, had chocolate, hang on, sorry guys. I had a chocolate tone thread, but as I come in here and I was looking at this fabric, that's actually a charcoal. So I'm going to use charcoal. And that way I'm tying the front to this fabric a little bit better. So I just need a little bit more cotton. Definitely get your needle prepped before you go and do your couching. Oh, come on. This thread's really old. It's part of my grandmother's stash of cottons from her sewing career. Can't imagine a bridesmaid being this colour, but yeah, I guess you never know. More like it was used to do just general sewing. Now, I'll wait until I get some more bits. Actually, here's a bit. Now that's a little bit thin. That was a random piece from something else, so I don't think I'll use that. We might utilise this. So I'm going to twist that a little bit to get it If you're worried too that it's breaking out on you, don't be afraid to pop a little glue in there to hold a point. You don't have to, but if it's getting furry and it's sort of worrying you that it's just going to fluff and unravel, you can do that. So let's get some applique pins and just pin where we want our little twig to meander. The more little kinks and twisted little spots you can get, the more natural it looks. But at the end of the day, if you're forcing it to do something, maybe it's best just to let it lie where it needs to lie. Extend this leaf a little bit, this branch a little bit, I think. That way if we want to put a leaf over there, I've got options. Yeah. Got that lid on. Okay, so this little guy, let's have another little play. I might just do that glue on the end there a little bit. I like how that gave me a bit of a sharp point to the twine. Okay, and instead of pinning, because this is a tiny little branch, I might just go straight to the needle, which is threaded. Put the pin in the glue. So it's fiddly, but I really enjoy it. I find it quite creative. Oh, need yourself a good knot, girl. Mind you, I'm feeling like I'm being a little bit heavy-handed. So I'll have to go looking for a charcoal thread and some of these little random leaves, abstract little, I'm sort of following the same shape as the fabric too. Where's a leaf to show you? See how it's got a bit of a funny little edge to it? So as you can see, you can pin it or you can just hold it and stitch, whatever makes it comfortable for you. Sometimes you might want to plan it out a little bit, so you might go through and pin the whole thing and then you can relax and just stitch everything into place. I've done that before too, just knowing it was in position where I wanted it exactly, and then I can just sit back and relax. This is just a little twig. You can make it quite 3D. See how that's standing up there? You can certainly play with doing that as well. Just put a little bit of glue on that end. When it's really coarse twine like this one is, and it has sticks, it can, I don't know, explode out of form. And it might be because there's a bit of a twig within it that's sort of pushing it out, and it gets really furry really quick. So if that's happening, the glue might be a good way of you control your piece. And even though this is three strands twisted together, there's nothing stopping you pulling that down even more and then twisting it again to get finer pieces, like little bits like that. That little guy there might look good as the charcoal. So like drift, whoops, where's my thread gone? Drift like little twigs in amongst it, just to soften the whole image, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. As for flowers, I'm still gathering. Remember the doily I had sitting here, the crocheted doily? What happened to that? Yeah, this one. This one here, I'm thinking of actually taking those little flowers out. They're just gorgeous. They suit the whole piece. And instead of, where'd my needle go? Instead of using that whole piece, I think I'm going to break it down, because the flowers I've made so far, to me, they're really big, and I'm going to be needing something very small and dainty to break it up a little bit. And then this morning when I looked at that doily, I thought, ooh, see, by putting that little bit of glue in there and making that a little sharper, the end, it's really helped blend that joint. I'll stitch to the end of this twig, then I'm going to pause the video. Actually, no, we're going to pick the charcoal thread and double check that that's where we want to go. Then I'll pause the video. I'll toddle off. Got a few things happening today, so I should still be able to get this finished in stitching wise. Then I'd love to be able to jump on my sewing machine and do the side seams, do the bottom, and then have a think about what I'm going to use for the handle. Get that tucked in between the lining and this outside panel. If you've watched the video or making a tote yourself, you'll know what I'm talking about. But you pin the handle on the inside, so here and here is where the pins would be, but the handle's, you know, hanging here. And then when the lining is stitched and this top edge is closed up and you turn it inside out, remember there was a hole in the bottom of the lining, you turn the whole bag through there, your handles are in position. And Angie has a really easy way to work out exactly where to place the handles. She has some measurements she gives you on that video. So I just got to think about what I'm going to use for the handle. Do I go neutral? Do I go a blue? Do I go, I don't know. Am I going to embellish the handles, stitch them? Who knows? One decision at a time. But we'll see how we go. It's nearly there. I'm nearly running out of thread too. Yeah, looking at that blue fabric, I think it needs to be the grey. I think the chocolate came from some of these fabrics. I sort of tend towards a chocolate coloured thread. I have just enough to get 2 more stitches, I think, at the end of this little twig. Maybe. Yep. Ending it off. The other thing I did too, just going to get this knot, is I invisible stitched that French piece of fabric to the wadding. Remember, they were 2 separate pieces and there was no glue on this, so therefore there was nothing holding it there and it could get, you know, pull away. So I went through and just invisible stitched right through. Okay, so that's that little twig in place. I can pinch. Can't believe I've bent an applique pin or an applique pin. They feel so strong, but I guess I do have some layers here. All right, so that's where we're at. We can carry on with that off camera, get the general gist of that. Let's have a look through the cottons for charcoal. See, the chocolate would be nice. That's not bad. That's got a blue tone to it. So my instinct would be to go that, but it's completely wrong when you look at this fabric. That's a slate. Yeah. Sort of thinking. Even that one. Okay, let's. Is that the same colour? No. It's like a bluey. I don't have many greys. I think it's this one. But the thing I like about this stranded cotton one is I can break it down into finer threads. Like if I want to do some real twiggy stitches, I could go down to 2 and get finer. I think that's the one I will do. That one there is, it's not bad, but see, it's not quite the right colour. I might have to look further afoot, but I think it definitely needs to be. Should I do a black? Black is so harsh. Where did that come from? Yeah, see, black's such a, yeah, no. It'll be a mix. No, it won't be a mix. They're just so different. All right, I'll pull them out. I'll put them to one side, but maybe I've got to go and have a hunt around and see if I can find a better. It's like a gunmetal grey. And it's a greeny grey. It's definitely not either of them. But anyway, I'm going to put them back because they're just not right. I'm going to have to probably go further afoot, which I don't know what that means. All right, let's see how we go. In the meantime, I can get the rest of my twigs happening. I think that's probably enough there. I might work on getting this guy. It's nice and chunky. Across his tummy. There will be flowers sitting there, so I'm not too worried about that joint and getting something there for him to sit on. It needs to come right up under his little bottom, so that might end up going up into the air. Might do a little bit of glue there. See how it gets furry? I know I said I was going to pause the video, but we're off on another tangent. Might as well take advantage of that hump. To get underneath his little bottom. It is fiddly. I'm going to twist that a little bit. But if you like this type of construction of something out of nothing, it's achievable. I might go for a longer pin. I'm probably making it harder for myself just to get across. Yep, there we go. Now, we've just got to work out what we're doing with his tail. Technically, it'd be lovely to have that behind. But I'm going to go across the front of him. I'm going to stay with that because I can do the one underneath behind. I don't think that's going to be seen. So what we'll do is I'll bring in this one. Here's a little bit in behind his tail. Where's the end? If I can get a bit of a point on it. When it gets to the point that I'm finished this panel, I won't be showing you too much of the construction of the tote, because go and watch that video. We'll be here for another 6 videos if I... Yeah, that works. We'll get him sitting behind. Yeah, and if a flower sneaks into that zone, it will still look like he's got his tail between 2 pieces of the tree. Yeah, that works. Yep. All right, guys. I've got my little flowers kept to one side. I'm definitely going to add those little flowers to it. So I think flower-wise, I'm probably pretty much there. I've just got to get these branches into position and my leaves, which is something I've got to figure out. All right, well, I might toddle off and start my day, and we'll come back once I have my tree finished. One more pin and then I can snip that. I might make that branch come right out. Won't hurt for it to be a little bit longer, I don't think. All right. Love it. Definitely need a few stitches in there. See, it's puffy. Just a couple little stitches will hold that down. Make it look like it's part of the whole piece. All right, guys. How long was that? Because I'm not projecting. I can't see the clock. So about 30 minutes. All right. We'll leave it at that, and I'll be back when I've done some more. See you soon. Hello, everyone. I'm back again. Remember, I mentioned, I think in the last video, that I felt like there wasn't enough of this camel colour in here. And being that I don't have the exact slaty grey colour, and my whole branch isn't this slaty grey colour, it's actually this colour, which is more the camel. I was sitting here stitching on the last few little bits of twig that I want to do, and I thought, well, I'm going to use this, match it too, and then I can go finer with my stitches because this is thick, and I'm pretty much going to stitch now in this tone here, and I think it'll work a treat. So I've just turned on the camera briefly as I start stitching. I'm going to put in this little twig. So it's going to be a combination of the 2 fibres, the thread and then the actual twine. And I think it's going to work a treat. Yeah. I had visions in my head of this charcoal, but when you don't have quite the right colour, and I didn't want to have to head out and try and buy a thread to match. I just don't have time. I was like, hang on a minute, why can't I? So what I've done there is I've put a stem stitch through there, but to get it finer again for a little tiny twig, I'm just going to do a split back stitch And the thing I like about this is I can now place my flowers in spots, and then if I feel like I need a little twig coming out, I've got the freedom of picking up my needle and thread and adding, you know, a little bit. So let's just head over to those leaves. We'll do this one here. We'll start up the top of that. Oh no, we'll start at the base and work back towards myself. So I feel like I could do a little twig there, but I think the little twigs, I'll wait until flowers are pinned into position. So let's just, I do a split back stitch for the leaves. Don't want them too chunky. They're nearly a little afterthought, not an afterthought, but I guess when you're printing fabric and you have like shadow lines in behind things, and they're not the feature, but they're there to help tell the story. That's what I want these leaves to be. It's all about the flowers, but I just felt like I could get some little twiggy looking, see-throughy little leaves. Yeah, that's going to work a treat. I think it'll help soften the piece. I'm happy now. I've found my thread. So I actually didn't move from my chair. I paused the video, added those extra pieces. I did that piece and that piece, finished stitching that one, and then I was like, these twigs, these leaves, what am I going to do? I don't want to go out and buy a thread. That's just a couple hours of my day just to go and get a charcoal. There has to be something. And that's when it dawned on me, just go, well, just keep it neutral. Make the tree disappear. Because those flowers, they're pretty abstract. Okay. I shall run out of thread just like that. Yeah, that's going to work a treat. All right, I need to thread up and carry on stitching the rest of my little tree. Maybe while we're here, how about we pin the flowers on? Let's have a little look at what we've got. And if I need to get some more, we can. So this one needs something leaning into it because it's got, see, I don't even mind that center, making that the center, that little gathered, so many threads in there. Here I thought it'd be that way, but I'm thinking it's going to be that way. Let's pin him down. Gosh, I hope I've been on camera the whole time, guys. It's so handy having the TV that I can just glance up to. I know that I'm all good. Where's that big flower? We'll make it quite chunky around here. Put my little Rachel flower in. And then maybe that guy a little bit further along, or yeah, in there. So these will just be stitched into position. Oops. They can't get too big out there. Maybe where he goes in there. He's one that's a half flower. I need to get a little smaller. So we'll head up here. Sort of the further away from here, the smaller they need to get. So remind me of the cherry blossom. Those little clusters along the branch. This big guy. Don't mind the back of him too, with a button in there. Maybe we bring him down, remembering that a lot of that will actually disappear, so I can't be too... Maybe I bring it right out here on this branch. So that's where some twigs might help sort of bring all that together. Yeah, I like him out there. And this guy, there'll be a side seam over there. Maybe put him there for now. He might be a bit big. So let's grab these little fellows out. This is a very pretty little motif. Having these little flowers on the inside. I haven't seen this one before. That edge too. It's very pretty. That could be used for something. Now these little fellows, we'll call them the little scatter flowers. Just some little itty bitty somethings that can soften the whole piece. Oh, how sweet. I could even go in the center if I've got enough of those two tatting flowers instead of a button. So I technically don't have my buttons nearby. Well, I don't mind that. Don't know if I like him over there. Maybe I head over here with him and tuck him in over here to extend the branches if there's quite a cluster happening up here. Remember there's a leaf on the way to that flower, so maybe I tuck him into there. We have the leaf. That there, and that there. Yeah, like that, little set of three, little set of three, and a couple little scattery ones. What I'll do is I'll pin them, then sort of just let it sit for a bit and make sure that everything's where I'd like it to be. There's no rush. Then I might even grab my pen and see if there's opportunities to bring in some more twigs to complement these flowers. Yeah, I like that one up there on the bird. Are they all pinned? Not that one. I feel like I could do with another one of those. Like a little one. Oh, here's the fabric, so I only have that left. So can I get, this is our little Rachel flower, a little peanut, two little peanuts. I'll make this one quite small. I love how they're so quick. Genius. Okay. Isn't it funny how you watch all these videos and then there's just this odd little thing that you see and you're like, oh, that's great. And then it just pops up in your repertoire. The trick is to try and remember who invented the thing. And it's hard. And, you know, sewing's been around for centuries. So it's really hard to say, yes, you've invented it, or you think someone might have invented it, because it could be being done, you know. Well, I can probably guarantee it. You go to someone like, if my grandmother was still around, I'd say, Grandma, look at this flower. And she goes, oh, yes, we were doing that back in the 50s. Oh, of course you were. So do we really reinvent the wheel? Isn't that the saying? Problem is you can't remember everything, so it's great when you see things and you go, oh, that's new to me. There we go. We've got another little cutie flower. They're beautiful, made in calico. They just look so cute. And we'll tuck that guy into there. Oh, I like that. It looks like it's a not a full opened flower, a bud. Not a full open flower. Shocking. All right, well, that's where I'm at so far. So actually I'll grab that. Do I have a friction pen here? Of course I don't. But if I was to have a friction pen, I'd probably now just have a little look at where everything is and see, like, that there could be a little stem. Definitely up there. I'd probably do something a little bit here, but there is a seam coming through there. So that leaf, I think, has to be repositioned a little bit more downward, and I'll redo him. So those two leaves need adjustment. Could probably do some twigs through here and up through here, maybe even a little one there. So yeah, it'll just be a case of having a look at it, percolating on it a little, and seeing where I can, you know, enhance it with some more stitching. All right, I'm going to toddle off, promise this time, but I will pause the video so that when I come back, the piece will be completed, is what I'm thinking. I put a couple needles there. Actually, I don't need him. Oh, yes, I will, because I'm going to be stitching down those flowers as well with a couple stitches. All right, so I need that, and I need that. And I'm ready to pop it by the couch, and I'll catch up with it a little bit later in the day. All right, guys, I shall pause it and, yeah, come back with it completed. Then I will probably stitch it all together. Have a think about these handles. All right, guys, look after yourselves. Oh no, I'm not saying goodbye. Back in a minute. Okay, I'm back. I have finished my decorative panel. So everything is stitched down. I did the leaves. I added some random little ones here and there and some little sticks, and then sprinkled some pearls over the piece just to give it a bit of glamour. I added 2 little extra patches down here. I sort of felt like they needed something. Everything is now trimmed back to the 11 by 8, both of them. So they are ready to stitch together. So that will go across to the sewing machine, and I will run down the side seams and across the bottom. Then once that's done, I will cut out the corners like I've been talking about for most of these videos. I will form up the bottom corner. I've got the iron on there, so I'm just got to be a little careful. I will form up the boxed corners using Angie's technique, which I think is very clever. So I won't bore you with all that. But then once this is stitched together, it is ready to have the lining and the handles added, which, like I just said, is all on Angie's video, but I just want to show you my handles. So I had thought, which was the incorrect thought, that I would use some antique hemp. And I thought, well, that'll be nice and sturdy because it's usually quite rigid, and I wouldn't need the wadding in the middle like Angie uses. So I grabbed myself a piece, I cut myself off. So there's the little bag once that's all stitched into position. Now I went and cut my handles. I folded them in half and I'm thinking, oh, nice and firm, lovely. Then I did the little corners over on that long edge, ready to top stitch that. And I thought, well, if I do this by hand, it's going to take a lot of effort because this piece I picked feels really stiff, which would be great for handles. But then the thought of stitching that, not a chance, let alone all of that into the seam of the bag. So I forgot about that idea, forget about that. And I went looking for a softer fabric just to make it a little easier. And I chose this camel fabric. And I think it works really well with the bag. If we just want to have a peek in there, that works really well. So I'm really happy with that. But then we come back to Angie's technique where you have your piece, your strip for one handle, which is 9 by 3, and then she folds it in half. See, I was avoiding the wadding by using the, I think that's inside out. 2 different handles, 2 different shades. That would be a bit disappointing, wouldn't it? And then she does a 1/4 inch fold and irons that into position. And then this white piece of wadding, which I've used through the whole project, is 1 inch instead of the 3. And that will be inserted into the fold of all this. And then technically Angie goes to the sewing machine and runs it down the sewing machine. But now I can actually do the top stitching. Could probably just finger press it. So that goes into there. That just gives it that little bit of extra support. And then she says to take care in getting your seams or your edges all lined up. Now, being on a sewing machine, like the speed of which it goes, this is where things can go awry. But being that I'm going to top stitch it with a thread, and I'm just going to use some crochet cotton. I've got myself all ready to go. I can fiddle with this at my leisure. Okay, lots of pins. And then I know it'll sit nicely. And then just to make it feel like I'm in control a little, because she uses a small 1/4 inch seam to stitch it, I've actually just gone and given myself a little bit of grace and drawn in some lines just by eye. That needs to be folded under there. I can see it's bulging a little bit, but I'll reposition this as I go. And the pressure's off. I don't need that sewing machine ripping along at high speed. I get to do a little bit more stitching. So the only other thing I will add now, so that's that task, that will be top stitched and they will become my little straps, is when I was just reviewing the video on where she places her straps, once this is all stitched together and box seamed, right sides together, I believe is how it goes, and you put in the straps at this stage. And I remember I mentioned that Angie has a way of measuring it. She finds the middle, which is about 10 inches, so 5 inches, and then she comes out about 1.25 inches, and that's where she positions her first strap. And then as you sew up that top edge, your straps are caught in that seam, which will connect it to this seam. So for more information, head over to Angie. So if that's in there, these little straps get caught as well in that whole last step of stitching. This is really rough, me showing you this, but Angie does a great job of it. The only thing I'd probably say is keep in mind, see that seam there? Do the same on the other side. And then once we're pretending now that that's all stitched, then you go around here and then using the hole that we left in the bottom of that lining, turn the whole thing through and then position your bag into the correct seated position. She also does a top stitch around that top edge here once it's all turned right. I'll have a look at that and see if I use the machine or hand. I think I'll be able to use hand sewing. I'll just take my time and I should be able to get that into position. So that's pretty much how you finish your bag. So remember, we want, just to give you a bit of an idea of what I'll be doing next, but I'd highly recommend go and visit Angie's video just to get a second opinion on the situation. I'm giving you a bit of a rough. Right, so there's the little handles, so to speak, on those little bags, on the little bag. Okay, I'm going to sign off and go on and do all of that, and I will be back to hopefully show you the finished product if all goes to plan. All right, guys, be back in a moment. Okay, my bag is complete. Well, nearly. The last thing I'm doing is just putting a little top stitch around the top edge of the bag. So I've just worked my way around, just pushing that lining down a little bit so it's not seen, and pinning it. And now I've just got some needle and thread and I'm just working my way around, and that'll stop the lining, this one stitch at a time, that'll stop the lining from jumping up or rolling up. You could do that on your sewing machine, but I've got so much bulk. When you do pieces like this, it's actually quite surprising how many layers there are. So as good as the sewing machine is, there's just sometimes you'd be putting it under too much pressure. This would be like stitching a heap of denim surfaces together. Just would be too much and would break the little bag. So I will finish this. I'll put a photo at the end of the video. You always got to keep an eye on that needle, that it comes in where you want it and not in the wrong spot. Angles do matter when you're doing stitching like this, especially when you're seeing it both sides. Yeah, that's better. So yeah, as I said, I will put a picture at the end. Had a close call. I nearly left a pin in the side seam. It was down in there, and as I was turning the bag through the little hole, which I've now stitched closed, got jabbed big time. When you assume that your piece, you know, is pin free, and then suddenly you discover one in a lining, yeah, real pleasant. All right, well, I'm going to toddle off. Thanks for joining me, guys. Thanks, Rachel and Sarah and Judy, for once again another great prompt. Looking forward to seeing what you have in store for us for May, because this certainly will be a handy little tote. I'll have to find something to put into it, won't I? Oh gosh, I could just tidy up this desk and find something that could go into it. Or I use it when I go places. Don't know. Who knows? It's I'm halfway around, so I might leave it at that. So there you go. My little tote is finished. I love it. Absolutely love it. All right, guys, look after yourselves, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.